If Sophie had a mission in life, it was to ruin mine. And if I were being honest, I had spent years plotting ways to do the same to her. It sounded ridiculous even to me now, but the truth was that high school had forged a rivalry that was less about grades and more about some invisible, unspoken war we both pretended to understand. The first time I met Emily, she smiled at me like she already knew my secrets. I hated it immediately. Her short black hair framed a face that could stop traffic with a glance, but it was the way her green eyes seemed to see straight into my soul that truly unsettled me. I remember thinking, this girl is going to make my life miserable, and somehow I was both terrified and fascinated by the idea. By junior year, our rivalry had reached an almost absurd intensity. Group projects became battlefield simulations. Library study sessions were strategic warfare. Even our mutual friends knew better than to schedule anything where we might cross paths without it devolving into a competition. And yet, amidst the chaos, Emily was always there. Somehow, she appeared in the right place at the right time. A constant thorn in my side, but also the only person who could make me laugh on the worst of days. Her humor was sharp, witty, and often laced with that teasing edge that made me want to punch her, and then immediately apologize for wanting to punch her. It was during one of those heated debates over a science project that I first saw the softer side of her. I had spent an entire week meticulously organizing our presentation, only for Emily to insist on changing half of it in a 5-minute brainstorming session. My voice had risen, my frustration palpable, and then she had smiled. Not smugly, not triumphantly, but softly. And in that brief moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us, the tension between us crackling in the air. "You're impossible," I muttered, but there was no bite in my words. "And yet you keep me around," she said, her eyes glimmering with a teasing warmth that I didn't know I needed. After high school, life scattered us in different directions. Emily went to a prestigious art school in New York, while I stayed in our hometown in Michigan, pursuing a degree in literature. We drifted, as old rivals often do. But I never forgot the way she could make me feel both infuriated and completely alive with a single look. It was years later, a crisp October afternoon, when fate or perhaps something crueler decided to throw her back into my life. I had just settled into a small cozy cafe in downtown Ann Arbor, leaf-strewn streets visible through the foggy windows. I was sipping a latte, minding my own business, when the door swung open. There she was. Emily. Same confident stride, same mischievous glint in her eyes, but somehow older, softer, more complex. She looked around and oh God, she found me. Of all the coffee shops in the world, I whispered under my breath, both annoyed and inexplicably thrilled. She walked over with that familiar easy grace, sliding into the seat across from me without invitation. "Miss me?" she asked, raising a brow. I wanted to protest, wanted to shove her out with every ounce of decorum I had left. But all I could do was blink. "You don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, though my pulse betrayed me. Emily laughed, a sound that still made my chest tighten. "Sure, keep pretending you hated every second of high school with me," she said, leaning back in the chair. "You've always been dramatic." We talked for hours, or maybe minutes, it was hard to tell. Emily had that way of dominating the conversation while somehow making you feel like you were the center of the universe. We caught up on mundane things first. Art school exploits, my writing projects, mutual friends, the trivial annoyances of adulthood. But beneath it all, I felt the undercurrent, the silent, unspoken truth that had always been there, lurking beneath our banter and competitive jabs. Then, just as the sun dipped behind the tall city buildings, she pulled something from her bag. A small, folded envelope, worn at the edges, almost delicate. My heart lurched. "I found this the other day," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's time you read it." The envelope contained a letter. Emily had written it years ago, a confession of feelings she never had the courage to speak aloud. The words were tentative, almost painfully shy, but the emotion behind them was raw, unfiltered. I read about late nights she had spent thinking of me, moments where she had wanted to reach out but held back, fearing I wouldn't reciprocate, or worse, that I would mock her. She spoke of love hidden beneath layers of rivalry, of a bond that had been forged in tension and teasing, but had always been there, silently waiting. As I read, everything fell into place. Every sarcastic comment, every pointed remark, every accidental brush of her hand, it had all been love, carefully disguised as animosity. and the weight of it hit me like a tidal wave. Emily had never tried to hurt me. She had only been trying to hide a feeling so profound. She feared it might shatter the delicate balance between us. I looked up from the letter, my eyes meeting hers. She was watching me, heart in her eyes, vulnerable and brave all at once. I swallowed, feeling a lump in my throat I hadn't expected. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked, voice trembling. She shrugged, a small sheepish smile tugging at her lips. "Because I was afraid you'd hate me. Or worse, because I wasn't sure I could handle loving you and still standing on my own 2 feet. Tears welled up unbidden. I reached across the small table, and this time I didn't hesitate. My hand covered hers, warm, steady, a bridge across years of unspoken emotion. "I don't hate you," I whispered. "I never did." Her laugh, soft and relieved, filled the space between us. And in that moment, the years of rivalry, the misunderstandings, the missed chances, they melted away. It was just us, 2 women who had spent so long circling each other with suspicion and defiance, finally discovering that what had always simmered beneath was love. We walked out into the chilly evening together, hands entwined, hearts lighter than they had been in years. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, golden and magical, and I realized that perhaps the universe had conspired to give us this second chance. A love that had been hidden in plain sight was finally ours to claim. The days that followed were a strange mix of familiar tension and exhilarating discovery. Emily and I met almost every afternoon, wandering through autumn-draped streets, cafes, and quiet corners of the city. Every interaction carried the ghost of our old rivalry, yet under it now lay a current of tenderness neither of us could deny. It was in a small bookstore, tucked between a bustling cafe and a flower shop, that we stumbled upon a shared fascination. I had always been a literature fanatic, and Emily, though she pursued visual art, had a soft spot for poetry. She ran her fingers along the spines of books, humming quietly, until her hand rested on a copy of Pablo Neruda's collected poems. "You're still the dramatic one," she said, teasing, but her eyes betrayed the warmth behind her words. I smiled, holding the same book. "And you're still the unpredictable one." We laughed, but the laughter held an unspoken agreement. Whatever had happened in the past was merely a prelude to what could be now. As we spent more time together, I began to notice the subtle ways Emily expressed her affection. It wasn't grand gestures or declarations, at least not yet. It was the way she remembered small details, how I liked my tea, the exact time I liked to write, the songs that made me laugh uncontrollably. It was the way her hand would brush against mine just long enough to make my heart skip a beat, but never too long to make me doubt its intent. I caught myself thinking about her constantly. At work, at home, even in dreams, Emily's presence lingered. And yet, there was an unspoken fragility in the bond we were forming. Years of missed opportunities had built walls between us, walls that neither of us knew how high or thick they might be. But with every smile, every shared secret, those walls began to crumble brick by brick. One chilly evening, we found ourselves at the edge of a small lake in an arbor, the surface reflecting the muted glow of a street lamp. Leaves floated lazily on the water, golden and red, caught in the last breaths of autumn. We sat on the bench, close but not touching, the silence between us more meaningful than any words could be. "You always had a way of making everything seem like an adventure," I said softly, breaking the quiet. Emily turned to me, her gaze serious yet tender. "And you always had a way of making me think I could never win," she replied with a half smile. I laughed, but it was tinged with something deeper, relief, recognition, a kind of joy that had been waiting patiently to bloom. Over the next few weeks, our relationship began to shift. Casual meetings became dates, brief encounters stretched into long evenings, and the comfortable camaraderie we had developed gave way to something deeper, more intimate. Yet, despite our closeness, both of us harbored fears. Fear of rejection, fear of disrupting the delicate balance we had finally achieved, fear of confronting the intensity of feelings that had simmered silently for years. It was Emily who finally broke the unspoken barrier one night at her apartment, a modest space filled with canvases, sketches, and a faint scent of paint and vanilla. We were sitting on the floor, sharing a bottle of red wine, the low hum of jazz playing in the background. "I've been scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared that if I let this, whatever this is, out, it might ruin everything. But I can't anymore. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel this way. My heart thudded. I could feel the raw honesty in her words, the vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. I reached out, cupping her face gently, thumb brushing against her cheek. Emily. I felt the same way for so long. I confessed, my voice trembling. I was just too stubborn, too scared to admit it. Her eyes glistened, and before either of us could overthink, our lips met. It was soft at first, hesitant, testing the waters of a love long denied. But then it deepened, a mingling of relief, longing, and unspoken promises. Time seemed to stop, the city outside fading into insignificance, as we discovered a connection that had always been waiting for us. The following days were a whirlwind of discovery. We explored each other's worlds with the same intensity we had once reserved for competition. Emily showed me the hidden corners of the city she adored, small parks where she sketched in secret, rooftops where the skyline stretched endlessly. I introduced her to the quiet beauty of my favorite bookstores, the cafes I frequented, and the poetry readings that stirred my soul. Every experience was enriched by her presence, every moment a testament to a love that had grown quietly, imperceptibly for years. Even in public, there was an electricity between us that drew attention. Friends noticed the subtle touches, the lingering glances, the small, intimate jokes that no one else could understand. But Emily and I didn't care. We were finally free to be ourselves, free to embrace the love that had always been there beneath layers of rivalry, fear, and unspoken words. And yet, life wasn't without challenges. Emily's past, her insecurities, and my own fears sometimes collided, creating brief storms. Misunderstandings flared, old patterns resurfaced, and the shadow of our former rivalry threatened to pull us apart. But each time we found our way back to each other, stronger and more committed than before. One rainy evening, as we sought refuge in a small cafe near the river, Emily's hand found mine across the table. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the rain tapping against the windows. "I don't want to lose this," she said quietly, eyes searching mine. "You won't," I assured her, squeezing her hand. "We've waited too long for this. Nothing will tear us apart now." Her smile was radiant, filled with relief and love, and for the first time I truly believed it. As winter approached, we settled into a rhythm, blending our lives in small, meaningful ways. Mornings began with shared breakfasts and whispered conversations over steaming mugs of coffee. Evenings were spent curled up on the couch, sharing stories, dreams, and the simple comfort of each other's presence. Our love was no longer hidden beneath sarcasm and rivalry. It was open, vibrant, and unapologetic. We celebrated holidays together, from Thanksgiving dinners with friends to quiet Christmas nights spent decorating Emily's apartment with handmade ornaments and fairy lights. Each moment was infused with the joy of being fully seen, fully loved, and fully ourselves. Spring brought new adventures. We traveled together, exploring small towns and national parks, capturing photographs, sketches, and memories. Every trip strengthened our bond, revealing layers of compatibility, humor, and affection that neither of us had imagined possible. And through it all, the letter remained a tangible reminder of the love that had been waiting for years, a symbol of patience, courage, and the power of vulnerability. We often returned to it, reading passages aloud, laughing and crying together, marveling at how far we had come. It wasn't a perfect journey. There were moments of doubt, lingering shadows of old fears, and occasional misunderstandings that required patience and communication. But each challenge only deepened our connection, proving that love, when nurtured with honesty and empathy, could withstand the trials of life. One warm summer evening, we returned to the lake where our hearts had first begun to reconcile. The water shimmered with the reflection of the setting sun, leaves drifting lazily across the surface. We sat on the bench, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet synchrony. "I never thought we'd be here," Emily said softly, resting her head against my shoulder. "Neither did I admitted, my fingers brushing through her hair. "But I'm glad we are." We sat in silence for a long moment, the gentle lapping of water against the shore providing a soothing rhythm. In that stillness, I realized that every struggle, every misunderstanding, every moment of rivalry and tension had led us here, to a place of love, trust, and unshakable companionship. As twilight deepened into night, we leaned closer, sharing a kiss that was both tender and passionate, a perfect encapsulation of our journey. The world around us faded, leaving only the warmth of our connection and the promise of a future built on honesty, courage, and unwavering affection. Life continued, filled with shared dreams, small adventures, and the quiet magic of everyday moments. We supported each other through career challenges, family dynamics, and the uncertainties of adulthood. And through it all, our love remained a constant source of strength, joy, and profound fulfillment. Years later, I would look back on that first letter with gratitude and awe. It had been a key unlocking a love that had existed quietly, patiently, beneath the surface of our rivalry. Emily and I had finally discovered the truth that had always been there. Love, when nurtured with honesty and courage, could endure, transform, and flourish, even against the odds. And in that love we found not just each other, but the truest version of ourselves, a version that was unafraid to laugh, to cry, to dream, and to love deeply. The first time I called Emily mine aloud, it felt like a confession to the world and to myself. It was a simple evening at her apartment, the city lights casting a gentle glow through the windows. We sat on the balcony, sipping tea and watching the streets below, the hum of life moving around us like a quiet symphony. "I want to spend every day figuring out how to make you happy," I whispered, my hand brushing against hers. Emily looked at me, her green eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You already do," she said softly, leaning into me. Her head rested on my shoulder, and for a moment, I thought time itself had paused, leaving only us suspended in a bubble of warmth and love. Our relationship had grown into something steady, yet magical. We celebrated little victories and comforted each other through setbacks. Emily's art flourished, inspired by the intimacy and trust we shared, while my writing deepened, enriched by the love that had once been hidden, and was now fully present in every word I put to paper. One autumn afternoon, nearly 2 years after that first letter changed everything, Emily surprised me. She led me down a quiet street lined with golden trees to a small clearing I didn't recognize. There, in the midst of fallen leaves and the soft hum of nature, she had set up a canvas, paints, and a small rustic picnic blanket. "I've been working on something," she said, her voice soft but brimming with excitement. "I want you to see it." I followed her gaze to the canvas, and my heart caught in my throat. It was a painting of us, sitting on that same bench by the lake where we had first truly acknowledged our feelings. But it wasn't just a reproduction, it captured the essence of us. Our laughter, our rivalry turned love, the quiet intimacy of holding hands, the unspoken promises lingering in our eyes. Every stroke of paint radiated love, vulnerability, and devotion. "I wanted to capture us," she said, her hand finding mine. "Everything we've been through, everything we've felt, everything we still have to explore." Tears pricked at my eyes as I took her in. The woman who had haunted my thoughts for years, who had been my adversary, my muse, my heart. I leaned forward and kissed her, a kiss that was gentle but full of the weight of unspoken words and years of longing. "It's perfect," I whispered. "Just like us." From that moment, life became a continuous celebration of love and togetherness. We traveled to new cities, wandering streets and art galleries, exploring every nook and corner of each place, as if we were discovering not just the world, but each other. We laughed until our stomachs ached, cried in each other's arms when life tested us, and supported each other through dreams and fears alike. Winter arrived, bringing with it crisp air and the first snowfall. We decorated Emily's apartment with handmade ornaments and tiny fairy lights, our laughter filling the space. That evening we exchanged gifts, each carefully chosen to reflect the depth of our bond. I gave her a leather-bound journal filled with letters I had written over the years, letters I had never sent, each one a testament to my love for her. She gave me a painting, self-portrait of Emily with a small figure of me tucked in her heart. "It's you," she said softly, her thumb brushing over the figure. "Always with me." I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her, and we stayed like that, lost in the quiet joy of being together. In those moments the world felt simple, bright, and safe. Spring brought new beginnings. We adopted a small dog, a scruffy golden retriever named Maple, who quickly became the center of our little family. Our apartment was filled with the chaos of playful paws, shared meals, and evenings spent curled up together on the couch, Maple snoozing at our feet. One evening, as the city skyline glowed through our window, Emily turned to me with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," she began, "about forever." My heart skipped a beat. "Forever?" "Yes," she said, reaching for my hand. "I want you in my life in every way possible, for as long as we both shall live. I know it's sudden, but I can't imagine going another day without making that real." I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the honesty and depth of her words. "Emily, I've wanted that for so long. I just didn't know how to ask either." And so, under the soft glow of the city lights, we made a promise. A promise to love fiercely, honestly, and without fear. To hold each other through storms, to celebrate joy. To nurture the love that had once been hidden, and was now finally free to flourish. Months later, surrounded by friends, family, and the warmth of a sunlit garden, Emily and I exchanged vows. Every word carried the weight of years spent in secrecy, of rivalry turned love, of hearts that had endured and emerged stronger. Our ceremony was simple but profound, filled with laughter, tears, and the kind of love that radiates quietly but powerfully. As we danced under the string lights, holding each other close, I realized how far we had come. From high school enemies locked in a battle of wits and pride, to partners in life, soulmates in every sense. The love that had once been hidden beneath sarcasm, tension, and fear had emerged triumphant, resilient, and beautiful. Life continued, not without challenges, but with a foundation stronger than either of us had ever imagined. Emily and I supported each other's dreams, encouraged growth, and remained fiercely devoted. Our love became a source of inspiration, a quiet testament to the power of patience, honesty, and courage. Years later, I would often revisit that first letter she had given me, now framed on our bedroom wall. It reminded us of where we started, the fragility and fear that had once threatened to keep us apart, and the enduring power of love when nurtured with care. And every day I would look at Emily, her smile lighting up the room, her hand in mine, and feel a profound gratitude. Gratitude for the rivalry that had led to understanding, for the letters that spoke truths we couldn't say aloud, and for the love that had waited patiently, silently, for us to finally claim it. We had discovered something extraordinary. That love, once recognized and embraced, can transform everything rivalry into partnership, fear into courage, hesitation into joy. And in that love we found not just each other, but the best versions of ourselves. Under the golden glow of an autumn afternoon, just as the leaves began to fall once more, Emily and I walked hand in hand along the same lake where our hearts had first reconciled. The world around us was alive, shimmering with possibilities. And as we paused to watch the reflection of the sun on the water, I whispered, "I love you, Emily. I always have and I always will." She smiled, her eyes full of love and certainty. "And I love you," she replied, "for everything we were, everything we are, and everything we will be." And so we walked on, hearts entwined, souls at peace, two women who had discovered that true love is worth waiting for, worth fighting for, and above all worth embracing fully without fear. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.